Hi there. We've got another Unplugged episode with me today. So I am, while you're watching this, I am off on a 3-day trip to meet with our business coach. And that's always a fun thing for me because, just like you, I'm always trying to sort of better myself and be in a place where it's not just about how to run a better business and how to be a better leader. It's really about how to be better Melisa. And so spend a lot of time when we go to meet with our coaches to really diving into myself, and it's a lot of inner work. So if you guys are doing any inner work this week, I am right there with you and really sort of trying to work to show up to be the best that I can be. And with that, I thought about today's topic and really want to talk about this concept of awareness versus judgment. And I want to say first, I'm not great at it all the time. There are times that I am knocking it out of the park where I can just see something and be aware of it and go, okay, I don't have to judge that, whether it be an emotion for myself or something I see somebody else do, without making a judgment on them or making it something that, is their fault or anything like that. And then there are times, like I said, where I'm not great. Times when I am awesome at it. Those times when I'm awesome at it is when I have really worked to sort of pay attention to that piece. So I'm going to challenge you this week to really stop and ask yourself at every turn, especially if you're having trouble with anger and frustration, whether it be at your kids, at your partner, at family, friends, the internet, your planning or lack thereof, anything that might sort of get you up in arms, and really sort of pay attention to how you're feeling. So when I get frustrated or angry, I can start to feel it in my stomach. It's the first place that I feel it, and it just feels tight. And then for me, sort of my chest starts to get tight. Sometimes my face gets red, and I have to notice then that my breathing gets kind of labored or it gets really fast. So when I feel that within myself, just being aware of it is super huge. When you can be aware of how different things, different emotions sort of manifest in your body, then you can start to make some changes. When we're not aware and we're just sort of running off crazy and just, making your life miserable, maybe your children or your partner's life miserable, friends' lives miserable, and you're always in a state of, having drama going on in your life. And then I think it's definitely feeling much different than it does when you can recognize it. And I've gotten to the point now where I see it and I go, okay, what the heck? How did I step into that trap? And I remember a poem that I told years ago to those listening to our to our videos, and that's the story of, and it's not one that I made up, and you'll have to forgive me because it's not anonymous, but I cannot remember the author's name. But she talks about walking down a street and you fall in a hole, and you're in the hole and you're like, dang it, how'd I get in this hole? And you're angry and you're yelling at people about being in the hole, and eventually you climb out. And then you walk down the street again and you see the hole and you fall right back into it and you go, oh man, I know how I got into this hole. And it's quicker to climb out. And the next time walking down the same street, see the hole and you look at it and you go, I don't want to be in that hole. But here I go, being sucked right down into it. And you're aware and you're allowing yourself to go into the hole. The next time you're walking down the street, you see the hole and you walk around the hole. You see the hole and you go, nope, I just don't even want to go there. Don't even want to be anywhere near that hole. Somehow the stuff inside the hole still clings to the bottom of your shoe somehow, but it's easier to shake off. But then when we're really self-actualized and we're really aware of how we're showing up, we just walk down a different street, one without the holes. Now that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to figure out all the holes and know they are all the time and all of that, but it does mean that you start to become aware. And in doing that, there's these exercises I like to try to do with myself on just sort of awareness versus judgment. So I'm going to give you a really good example that comes back to my mind time and again. So, and let's see if in me telling it, you also have some judgments about me, which will be really funny if you do. And I want you to catch yourself. So this place of my own personal judgment came at Disneyland. So there again, those of you who are like not ever going there, think Disneyland is the devil, you're already judging what I'm going to say, or judging me for having actually been there. And our family enjoys that. I'm not apologetic about it at all. I have no problem going and having fun as a family. So I'm at Disneyland, and I spent a better part of my 20s and early 30s being an activist, and I'm still an activist in many ways, but I do a lot of different things to sort of bring about the change that I'd like to see and like to help people bring about in their lives. I was a major activist for breastfeeding and for midwifery, and so I often sort of wear that on my sleeve, like not in a now not in a judgmental way. When I see a mom that is using a bottle instead of breastfeeding, even though of course I would hope that she at least tried, it's not my business, and it's not. I can observe and I can say, okay, well, at least that mom is lovingly holding that baby, and that baby has the care that it needs. And even though, like I said, from an activist place, gosh, the activist in me is shouting, Melissa, why don't you judge her? Judge her. You just want to judge her. And that's so often the trap with activism, right? Is that we want to provide informed consent. And that's really where I come from now with so many things. Informed consent is sort of the my belief that we can disagree, and if there's something that I hold dear to me, and you have done the same research and you came up with a different answer, that is informed consent. I can be okay with you doing that for you and your family if you have rationally done the research. So back to my story. So I'm at Disneyland and having fun with my family, and that's usually when sort of this drama or these judgment things come up, is when we're least expecting it, right? Eric has this little line, when you least expect it and most deserve it, which I'm laughing at all the time. So no, really, I'm walking and I see this stroller, and it's got a giant container of formula in the bottom of it. And immediately my mind goes, I didn't look at the mom, I didn't look at the baby. Gosh, it's really, I can't believe I'm seeing that here. And I don't even know, like, seriously, why I would have even thought Disneyland would be immune from that, for heaven's sake. It's like mainstream America, right? So then I allowed my mind to go into this place of getting momentum behind that. And I started to judge the mom. Again, hadn't seen the mom, hadn't seen the baby. Judging. And then I felt probably the spirit or my rational self or both, that inner being, say, Melissa, one, why do you care? That's between that woman and that baby and God. It has nothing to do with you. And the other thing I felt the spirit say was, maybe if you take a look at the mom and the baby, then you will step out of your place of judgment. So I did. And goodness, how silly I felt, because it was very obvious this mom had adopted this baby. So did that justification of that adoption justify me then not judging? Or should I just not have judged at all to begin with? And that's something that it comes up again and again for me, not because I'm continually replaying it, but as something that when I am looking at myself in a place of, can I just observe, I remember that. And really the reason why I'm remembering it is I didn't have all the facts. I didn't have all the facts when I made the judgment, and I made the judgment so harshly out of my own personal belief rather than from a place of just observing. So if I had just been observing, I would have looked and saw the baby formula and not even said another word about it, not even thought, wouldn't have even thought about it. And then I would have saw the baby and saw how cute the baby was, and I would have seen the couple and I would have been like, oh, so sweet that they have adopted this baby. So sweet. And, or that it maybe was a friend's baby or something like that. So when I find myself in places of judgment, I often go back and I think about that that situation where I just didn't have all the facts. And most of the time when we're judging, whether it be our partner or somebody that we see on the street, or a favorite one of mine is when I go to Costco and I see people with nothing but soda in their cart. And I go, oh my goodness, where are they going with all that soda? You know what, Melissa, it's none of your dang business. They're probably going to some party. Who cares? They're going to go have a good time. That's all that matters, right? The observation would be, they got a lot of soda today, and move on. There's no judgment. There's no attachment to it. So in my own life, like with myself, it's very easy for me to judge myself. And when we judge ourselves, it doesn't help us with our healing process and with our process of how we're showing up. So if you can look at yourself and, and sometimes that might be your bank account, that sometimes might be the extra pounds you're carrying around. It might be, you may just not feel very pretty that day or very handsome that day. And it's very important, I think, to be able to say, you know what, I'm exactly the way I am, and that's okay. Just observe and be okay with it, and love yourself. Love the situations you're in. Observe instead of judging. When you're in a spot where you have to make a judgment, which we are often in those spots as parents, then you make a judgment. But don't make judgments that you don't have to. My goodness, I always think there are some jobs I wouldn't want to have. Judgment seat is not one of them. I do not want to have that job. I don't want to have that job, like, ever, because that's going to be a really hard job. The judgment seat got, whether it be, of course I'm coming at it from thinking of a Christian perspective, but judgment in general is not a great place. It's not a great place. Judgment in general is a place often of very limited perspective. And when we have limited perspective and when we judge from that space, we say more about ourselves than we do about what we're judging. So when we are unkind or judgmental about somebody else's decisions, we say more about ourselves than we do about that person. So even if that, is a really hard situation, you have to stop and say, do I have all the facts? And what harm would come if I just observed today? So just working on just observing. So that's my challenge to you this week. Just observe. Now, if you're somebody that's really struggling in your pain body and you are in a spot where you're constantly feeling like the world is just crumbling down around you, and you're often in a space where you are just feeling your pain, whether it be, your child or your partner, maybe your child's got special needs and you're really struggling and just really always it's so hard, or your partner and you and your partner are not getting along and it's so hard. Yep, it is. But you can't live in your pain body forever, because pain body does not heal. Pain body only focuses on pain body. So you have to be in a space of, do I want to heal my pain body? Now, of course, again, like I said, there are times in our lives when we are really struggling. So you allow yourself some time to struggle, and you allow yourself some time to be upset and in pain. But I'm telling you, you can get over it like that. It's up to you. It's up to you. And I know often when I say things like that, I get some rebuttals back. And that's okay, but I want you to know I will never agree with you fighting for your own limitation. You can be in a struggling place. You can have your hard time, but then it's time to step up and walk on. And that might mean that you get some therapy. That might mean that you have to go to an inpatient situation. There's no shame in that. That might mean that you need some intensive family help. That might mean that it's time to get divorced. That might mean that you need to reach out and say, hey, I am struggling. I need help with this child with special needs. That might mean that you need to say to whoever is constantly on you, hey, I got this, leave me be. It might mean that you need to use your voice and open up. But for heaven's sake, be kind to yourself and decide, hey, today I'm going to step out of my pain body. And today, just today, I'm going to try to be in observation mode instead of judgment mode. And you might have to do that minute by minute, hour by hour. But the more you stand in observation than judgment, the easier it gets and the stronger you'll be. So with that, I hope you have a wonderful week. And next week, we are talking about grade 7 physiology and sort of the scary, that's the, a lot of families really struggle with it. That's the birds and the bees year. And a lot of moms will say to me, oh, we already had that talk. I don't need to do that. We actually you go about it a little bit differently in grade 7. So we're going to be talking about that and why I think that even if you've had that talk with your kids, you should absolutely not skip it. And it's definitely much more than that. It's so funny because we just did that block with Samuel, and he knew it was coming. And he's 13, almost 13 and a half. He knew it was coming, and I said, would you prefer your dad teach this block? And he goes, no. I'd really prefer not to learn about that until I'm 30. He started laughing. I said, son, it's 2 days. 2 days, and then we'll move on to digestion and respiratory and circulatory and nervous system and all that other stuff. So we made it through. 4 children out of 5. We've made it through that those few days of having that conversation. And you know what? It's great when you can be open with your kids. And yes, those conversations might be a little bit uncomfortable. And I always just say, if you would rather turn around and not face me when we do this, but really and truly, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. This is just your human body, this body that is amazing, that has been created from source, and we should be thankful for this body. So we have a lot of great conversations about that during the physiology block. So join us next week, same time, 7 a.m. Pacific, here on Facebook and on Instagram, and we will see you all later.